Fast Cars goal setting method. Unlock your potential using the same goal setting method that has transformed my aspirations into my achievements. Guys, I'm super excited to bring to you Fast Cars. Focused, attainable, specific, time bound, consistency, accountability, responsibility, and scribing. That is the acronym that I use all the time to set my goals. What does F stand for? F stands for focused. One of our past sessions, we spoke about this right here, the balance wheel. The balance wheel simply looks at my life from a macro perspective and how much fulfillment am I getting in certain areas of my life, or what I like to call gardens, certain gardens of my life. I will pick one of those areas. Ben Hardy says it best when he says, if we have more than 3 priorities, we have no priorities. And when he says that, what he means is simply, if you have too much stuff going on in your life, you're never going to achieve anything. Right? Let me close this out here. It's annoying me. Sorry about that, guys. Keeps coming up with tips. So, what are we going to focus our attention on? Are we going to focus our attention on a specific garden in our life? So what garden are we going to focus our attention on? Then when we write that goal, the A in fast is attainable. So after we write the goal, we want to make sure that it's attainable. I like looking at goals. I look at goals like as the rookie, the minor leaguer, and the major leaguer. Right? The rookie is we're just beginning, we're just starting out. We want that quick win. We want to show our minds that the method that we're using actually does work. We want those quick wins. Our mind gets that reward, that dopamine hit. Oh, this works. Let me do it more and more. And we start building that habit. We're going to talk more about that when we speak about habits in a couple of weeks. We want to make sure that it's attainable. As an intermediate, we're going to set that goal as something that we have to think about, right? Like we set the goal and we're like, is that attainable? Yeah, no, I feel that stretch. it's gonna make me grow a little bit. And then when we get to that professional level, right? We've set goals for a while. Those goals, we're starting to hit the goals. We're starting to fire in on all cylinders. That's when we set that big, hairy, audacious goal. I'm in the camp of thinking big. I have it right here on my wall. Every time I walk into my office, this is something that I see. I'm all about thinking big, starting small. So think big. Think about how you're going to absolutely accomplish big, miraculous things like putting a man on the moon. Think about that. But know that in the beginning, when you're first starting out, you need to get that momentum. You need to get those quick wins so that you build that momentum. It's like pushing a car. The first time you start pushing a car, you're like grunting. It's hard to start. You're putting all your body weight into it. You're like, this is heavy. But then, a couple of minutes later, you're just running down the road. 2 fingers, you just keep it up with it because you already built that momentum. So that's what we're talking about with attainable. S, specific. So is the goal specific? Right now, one of the gardens that I'm setting a goal in is health. I want to weigh 160 pounds. I'm at 175 right now. I will weigh 160 pounds in 2 months. Getting specific, though, is you could list that many different ways. I could say I just want to drop 20 pounds, 15 pounds, right? I'm 175, 160. I want to drop 15 pounds. But when you sharpen that up, when you smooth that out, when you get a little bit more specific on that, I will weigh 160 pounds by. It makes it much more clearer. It makes it much more specific. I like listing it in the positive, not in the negative. The negative would be I'm going to lose something. I don't even like using that word lose. I like getting very specific with my words. So I'm not going to lose 15 pounds. I'm simply going to describe what I'm going to obtain. I'm going to be 160 pounds. Same thing for income. I could say I want $10,000 more. Or I could say that I want $15,000 of income per month. It's the same philosophy. T, time bound. So set an end date of when you want that to happen. This goes with attainable a little bit. If we're going to set an attainable goal, it goes with time bound. So, for example, I have a buddy of mine, and this is a shout out to you, Lou, in my pod. He's prepping to run the New York City Marathon. He's been doing this for about a year and a half, 2 years now. And he said that I can't just wake up one day and run the marathon. Like, I wouldn't be attainable in that time frame. But I gave myself 2 years to train, to prep, and now every day he's doing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. When he gets to November to run the marathon, he already attained the goal with entering the marathon, right? Like, when he gets there, he's already going to be able to run the marathon. He already knows that he's going to achieve that goal because of all the leading measures he took up to that goal. And we're going to talk about leading measures when we start talking about habits and behaviors. So making sure that you give it an end date. I will weigh 160 pounds by September 30th. I will increase my income to $10,000 a month by December 31st. Like, making sure that you are telling your mind, your RAS, we're going to talk about that in a second. When you set a time bound, right, and you're specific with your goals, and you make them attainable, and they're focused, you're actually activating your RAS, your reticular activating system. And think about the RAS as the gates to your mind, right? What are you letting into your mind? This is what you're letting into your mind. So activating that RAS and telling your RAS what to look for will allow you to actually achieve things. Now, that's the components. This is the components right here, fast. The components of a goal. The pieces you need to actually write out the goal. Now we're going to talk about the attributes you need so that you actually achieve the goals. And those attributes are cause. Now, when I was first setting goals, I would set a SMART goal, right? And essentially, SMART and fast are kind of the same thing. It's the components you need to actually write out a goal. And I'd be writing out all of these wonderful goals, and I wouldn't be achieving them all. Like, I'm doing what they tell me to do. Like, why aren't I hitting it out of the park? So then I took the page out of the fire department again. I've told this story before. If you've listened, if you've been with us for any amount of time, but I sat around the table and I started thinking about all the goals that I set and the goals that I absolutely knocked out of the park, the goals I only half knocked out of the park, maybe it made it to like the outfield, and then all of those strikeouts and those ground balls and all of those times I failed at achieving my goal. And I looked at all of that and I said, what am I doing every time I hit these goals? Like, and what's missing when I'm over here in this pool and things are just falling apart? And that's how I came up with cause. The first one's consistency. Yeah, my spelling's great. Consistency. Consistency is, are you taking sometimes daily action, sometimes action every moment to every day. Like, are you taking that consistent action? I don't think it has to be moment every day. But for me, it was, did I keep it on my mind? Was I clear on my objective? And was I always working on it? Was I constantly moving forward? I call it moving the needle. Was I constantly moving the needle? When I had a break in time, when a meeting got canceled, I would use that canceled meeting, that time block for that canceled meeting. I would use it to do something that would move the needle on my goal. I was taking very consistent action, and I was doing it, quote unquote, all the time. I asked myself, how do I become consistent? Like in those times, and this was probably about 90% of the times that I was consistent, I had accountability. How do you stay consistent? You stay consistent with accountability. Accountability is not a derogatory word. It's not a bad word. It just, accountability is, how are you, what system are you going to put in place that ensures that you stay consistent, that you do what you said you were going to do. Accountability is that piece. I only know one person that is self-accountable. I know lots of people. There's only one person that is self-accountable, that when he says he's going to do something, he just knocks it out of the park. Everybody else has to use something. Some of the things they use, I use a Post-it on my laptop. It says A/J. And A/J reminds me of two people that, and then it reminds me of their story. And that reminds me, oh, I never want to be in the position that I was in with those two people. I want to be in an elevated position so that I never have to go through that again. So when I don't necessarily feel like doing something, I look at that. Sometimes I wear a watch that somebody gave me as a gift. And that's my accountability, because the person that gave that gift to me is one of the people that I was just talking about on the Post-it. Some people have a alarm set in their phone. Some people have an accountability partner. I have an accountability partner. We meet every week. We talk back and forth about what's going on, what we're doing, what we're excited about. And then during the week when we don't actually physically meet, we're sending each other text. And as he's accomplishing his stuff, that's keeping me accountable, because I'm like, I can't show up next Thursday and tell him I'm not, like, I didn't do anything. Right? So that's accountability. Accountability could be a text, a phone call, somebody just showing up at your doorstep. Right? I have another friend of mine, he started a running club, and he wasn't a runner. He wasn't a runner, but he wanted to get more fit. And he said, I got to run. So how could I run? He joins a running club, and then he takes over the responsibility to have the key to the facilities, the locker room. He had the key to the locker room, and he made sure that he was the only one that had the key to the locker room. And what he said was that was extreme accountability, because if I didn't show up, then they couldn't run. It's very easy. How many times? I've done it all the time. It's very easy to change plans when it's just us. I'm going to run at 3 o'clock. You know what? I don't feel like it. They need help. The kids need help with homework. Like, life happens. Life gets in the way. And we readjust our plans. But when I don't show up, if 10 other people can't run, better damn well be sure that I'm going to show up. Because I'm not taking on that responsibility. I'm not going to be responsible for these people falling out of their routine because I didn't feel like running today. And that leads me to the R, responsibility. Jeff Olson, I don't have his book. Wish I had his book right here. I have it somewhere. Jeff Olson writes in his book, let me find this. Responsibility. So this is what Jeff Olson says on responsibility in his book, The Slight Edge. Excellent, excellent, excellent book, if you guys are looking for a book to read. Responsibility liberates you. When you take and retain full responsibility, even when others are wrong or the situation is genuinely unfair, you keep your life's reins in your own hands. Even when it's genuinely unfair. taking responsibility for the role that you played in that situation. And that role could just simply be, I decided to drive to the store at this moment in time. I decided to turn down this block at this moment in time. Whatever it may be. You retain that freedom. The freedom of, I still have the reins of life in my hand. Scribe. Scribe's another big one, guys. Scribe is fancy for writing out goals. Write out your goal. I think a goal, and I don't write it, it's a dream. Dreams float off into the atmosphere. When I physically take pen and paper and I write out the goal, it does a lot of different things. The first thing it does is a visceral response. Remember earlier we talked about the gates opening and closing? Our RAS, writing that out, we have a vibration between the pen and the paper that we feel. As we're writing it out, we're reading it. So that's 2 times. So we thought it, we felt it as we wrote it out, and we read it as we wrote it out. That's activating our RAS to tell our RAS this is important. It's something that you should be paying attention to. And as we do that, the RAS then kind of makes that happen. Now, you still have to take the action. You still have to make the plans, and you still have to be intentional. It doesn't like, I don't just write it out and then I go sit on the couch and all of a sudden I'm 20 pounds lighter. That's not how it works. But what happens is, when I write that goal out, I will be 160 pounds by September 30th. That activates the RAS, the vibration. I wrote it down. For me, when I write things down, I'm like, oh, I wrote it down. Now I have to take care of it. I have to be able to cross it off. And when I write that down, my RAS now goes into activation. So that when I'm walking down the aisle in the supermarket, my RAS says, you want cucumbers, you don't want crackers. Right? You want chicken, you don't want bacon. Things along those lines. You want water and seltzer and tea. You don't want soda. And all those sugary drinks. When you're faced with sugar, sugar's my nemesis. I love sugar, and I'm in the process right now of kicking sugar. And it's my nemesis. We go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But when my RAS is activated, I'm more apt to be able to resist that sugar. I'm more apt to be able to say, you know what? I'm not going to have that Italian ice, or I'm not going to have that ice cream. I'm going to find other sources of sugar through berries. Berries are a big one for me. Berries, bananas, things along those lines. As you take all of this into consideration, right? How to write the goal, the components of the goal, and then the attributes you need to put into place so that you're achieving your goals. So you can write as many goals as you want. I said this earlier. But until you start implementing a system of habits and behaviors, you're going to have a hard time achieving your goals. This right here is how you start instituting that. We're going to be talking about habits, behaviors, all of that in the weeks coming. The next session, we're going to be talking about visualization and vision boards, where we see ourselves in the future, vision statements. And some of you are going to be thinking, why would I set a goal and then decide where I want to be? Isn't that backwards? Shouldn't I decide where I want to go and then set the goals to get me there? Yes. I wanted you to start thinking about your goals, and I wanted to show your mind that even though you set a goal and you're starting to think about your goals, it's not written in stone. You have to be flexible. You got to be able to pivot. Every time I was like steadfast, it was like I was pulling an AT. I was trying to, like, you see those strong men, they tie themselves up to like fire trucks and they're trying to pull that fire truck, or I'm running down the road with a big parachute on my back, and I'm not making any headway. It's because I was too steadfast. Every successful person I know has been very has had the ability to change how they do things. They tweak things constantly. And that's what I'm doing here. I want you to start thinking about your goals. And then I want you to almost have like a goal set. And then we go through visualization and boards and statements and identity, like what we want our identity to look like in the coming months and years. And I want you to see that, oh, you know what? That goal's really not going to get me there. I can just change it, right? I have a friend of mine that when he writes things out, he has to use a pencil. Because in his mind, if it's a pencil, it's not permanent. And it allows him to come back, erase something, and pivot. I have another friend that does the exact opposite. He says, I have to use a pen, otherwise I come back and I change it too much. And the friend that's using a pen, he's changing it just because he's letting his mind take over. He's not changing it because it's an actual real pivot. He's changing it because he's using it as an escape route. Because he doesn't have all that much accountability for people to call him out on the carpet. That is fast cars. That's how I have set goals, and that's how I've achieved those goals. Every time I've followed this plan, just about every time, nothing's 100%, but every time I followed this plan, this method, this system, this course of action, whatever words you want to use, I've been so much more successful in hitting that goal, in achieving that goal. And I truly believe it's primarily because of C and A in cars. So guys, remember we live up top in results over excuses. Go out there, be unstoppable! Absolutely love you guys. If you have questions, reach out to me. I'm always here to help. If you need clarification, drop a comment down below. Let me know what your goals are. Let me know what you plan on plugging into this system. Write out a goal and then say to yourself, is it focused? Is it attainable? Is it specific? Did I say when it was gonna end so that I could see when I achieved it, right? Specific and time bound. I know when I'm gonna achieve the goal. Guys, have a great day. Go out there, crush it today. I love you.